Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts Damian Boat and Catherine Bramkamp.
Hey, this is episode 202 of the Newbie Writers Podcast, and we're back for another week. Speaking of backs, I hate them. Anyway.
Yes. I like the way you did a perfect segue into that. That was nice. We're back. Good. Oh, my back.
I didn't even think about it, to be honest.
That was great. So just so that everybody knows why you may not be Mr. Excitement and Personality, what did you do to your back?
Well, firstly, if anyone hears that, they'll be like, well, he's never Mr. Personality or excitement. But anyway, no, I've pulled my back really badly. So I may maintain more radio silence than normal this week.
Yeah, well, and I just, we've already suggested lots of, our choice for American drugs. So Pam and I have tried our best.
Which I misinterpreted. How do you say it? What's the short term for it?
NSAIDs.
NSAIDs, right.
NSAIDs.
So from the Australian brain, I thought that was NSAIDs, and I don't want AIDS, sorry. So.
Well, I don't blame you.
Yeah, not something I want to sign up for.
No. Not something anybody wants to sign up for.
Anyway, that's...
So,
yes.
We have Pam Webber on as our guest. Thank you, Pam, for coming aboard.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad. I hope you feel as excited in the next 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You've written a book called The Wiregrass, a novel, and is this your first novel?
It is my first novel, absolute first novel.
Cool. So that's one thing that we love to talk about. And let's start with who published it.
She Writes Press, which is a company that is in California. The gal who is the publisher is a woman named Brooke Warner, who came by way of Seal Press, and she felt that there seemed to be a bias in publishing towards men and not so much for women, and she wanted to change that, so she started a publishing company called She Writes Press, and actually I think she's changing the paradigm. She's a brilliant publisher.
Yes, she is, and we've had her on the show, and she's a big supporter because she's in the Bay Area, so I've met up with her a couple of times. Great supporter of all writers, and She Writes Press has been really great about that, which is why when they call me and say, we've got an author, will you have her on, I usually say yes.
Very good. Very good. She's got a real eye for spotting talent and nurturing it. You know, she just doesn't say go and do. She's hands-on, which is good.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it's part of what they wanted to do. That's part of their brand, is to be hands-on and help their authors. And it's and just so that to remind our listeners, She Writes is not affiliate, what we call author assist. So you also are paying into getting your book published, correct?
It's hybrid publishing, partner publishing, which
better name.
And the bottom line is that the author pays for certain aspects of publishing regardless of the format in which it goes. It's just in hybrid publishing, the upfront costs are shared by the publisher and the author. Whereas traditional publishing, comes out on the other end, in this one, it's spread out just evenly across the publishing process, which makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So tell us, so now we've given Brooke tons of shout outs and she owes me.
Really.
I'll let her know. How did you, let's back up a little bit. How did you get to choosing She Writes Press, and how did you, let's start with that, and then we'll back up even more and talk about what inspired you to write your book and where you are with that. But let's talk about the publishing piece first.
Well, I've been in academia for a long time, and as in the States, when you teach and you teach at the collegiate level, the assumption is that you will publish. And I have had to do that academically. I teach in a school of nursing. I've published 4 editions of a nursing textbook and numerous articles, mostly research articles. So I'm extremely familiar with traditional publishing. And
Okay.
when I finally decided to write this novel, I didn't want that traditional experience. I know the limitations of it, and then it's got some great benefits too, but I also know the limitations of it, and I wanted more control over the product. I wanted to be able to pick my, have final say on my cover, pick it if possible, on what, within reason, what the book looked like, sounded like, and so forth. And in partner publishing, they give you that option, but it's not, I know what I don't know, and they brought in the experts to help me with what I didn't know, and it was great. But I went with She Writes Press because I wanted to be involved in this, as opposed to the textbooks that I do. It's a great little textbook, but I didn't have a whole lot of say on the design of the cover. I don't have a lot of say on the publishing side of it because in traditional publishing, you sign over your rights. It technically is not my book anymore. It belongs to the publisher, and I wanted more involvement, and I wanted to retain rights.
Very good. That's a good point too. A lot of times, new authors don't consider that, and it's always kind of a risk or a crapshoot, if you will, where you have a publisher, like I've got a series out with a very small boutique publisher who then was sold to another small boutique publisher, and as an author, you watch this, it's like, well, how's this going to play out? Because they're batting around your property, and it doesn't belong to you. You can't, you can not necessarily pull it away. So that is interesting to me. So let me ask you a question with She Writes Press then. So if your book is up on Amazon, because everybody's is, and that's another discussion, can you go into Amazon and get your own statistics? Do you have that level of control over the book sales?
There's different levels of statistics. On Amazon, I have an account called Author Central, and most authors who do anything on Amazon, we do. She Writes Press distributes through Ingram, which is the same distribution house that distributes for all the traditional publishing companies. So the real statistics on sales and that kind of stuff come through Ingram. And they come through periodically, like quarterly, and then they're reported to the publishing company. But you can get an informal idea of what's going on with Amazon simply by going on and signing up and using Amazon or Author Central.
Okay, so anybody could do that with any book? Okay, that's good to know.
That's my knowledge of it. Now, I'm no expert on Amazon, but I think, as long as you're an author with a book that has been screened and put on Amazon, I believe you can start an Author Central account. Okay,
cool. Because sometimes people like to know before you get the the $4.95 from your publisher for
really
for bulk sales. So excellent. So tell us a little bit about you're a nurse and an instructor. Tell us a little bit about the book, and then what inspired you to switch over and write a novel when you've been so embroiled in the academic world, or is that simply the answer?
Well, yeah, actually it is. I've written in academia for so long, and when you're writing in nursing science and research, it's very, I won't say formulaic, but there's very strict guidelines with regard to when you're producing evidence that's going to influence human beings. So you don't have a lot of creative license. You basically take care of business. You answer the questions. You present the statistics, and that kind of stuff. And even the book, which is Introduction to Theory and Reasoning in Nursing, it's pretty academically oriented. And I've done it for so long that I really wanted to change things up. I had had the idea for the novel percolating for a while, and I finally just said, if I don't sit down and put pen to paper, it's not going to happen. And I find it's interesting because everybody thinks they can sit down and write a book. Writing that novel was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, and I write for a living, and it was hard because not only do you have to switch gears not look towards the academic science side. But if you want the novel to be good, and I'm that much of a perfectionist that I want it to be good. I wanted it to be really good. That I did as much research for the novel as I would for a research study, and I actually ended up making 3 research trips down south to get information for it. And I decided the book is called The Wiregrass, and for those of you who don't know what the wiregrass is, in the deep south of the states, there's a triangle-shaped region that encompasses southeast Alabama, southwest Georgia, and the panhandle of Florida. And it's referred to as the wiregrass, the wiregrass region. And the reason they call it that is because the place has this nasty grass, and it really is nasty grass. Feels like wire. If you make the mistake of walking in that stuff barefooted and you're a tenderfoot, you're going to get hurt and scratched up. Wow. So that's where it got the name. But it's a beautiful region other than this grass. It's actually almost semi-tropical. It's got underneath the majority of the wiregrass is this aquifer. It's this huge underground lake, and that lake has given rise to some very lush swimming holes and crystal water springs and creeks and that kind of stuff. So it really is a very lush region. And because it's so close to the Gulf of Mexico, in the summertime it's hot as Hades down there. Mm-hmm. And these incredibly terrifying but beautiful storms roll in off the Gulf of Mexico. So water, believe it or not, is a big part of the wiregrass, both from underneath with the aquifer and on top with these summer storms that are absolutely mesmerizing in their terror. I mean, they can just, it's like being in the middle of a hurricane. But that's where the name came from, the wiregrass. My mother was born and raised in the wiregrass. She met my dad there. There's a place in the wiregrass right out in kind of central Alabama called Fort Rooker. And Fort Rooker was in 1968, which is when the novel is set, and now is the aviation training center for the United States Army. All the helicopter pilots and crews go through Rooker. Well, in 1968, the Vietnam War was going on, and we all know the role that helicopters played in that war. So there was constant training, runs going back and forth in the skies of the wiregrass in 1968. In fact, folks could actually set their clock by it. Fort Rooker had a bunch of training fields all over the wiregrass, so these blankets of helicopters would leave Fort Rooker at 10 o'clock in the morning and fly over this little town, land at the training field that was close by, and then at 10 o'clock all those helicopters would take off again and go back to Fort Rooker. And people could literally set their clocks by where the blanket of helicopters was going over. But my dad was actually based at Fort Rooker when he met my mother. And then when they married, they moved to Virginia. But every summer my mother, our parents would take us back to the wiregrass for summer vacations. And it was magical. It was a wonderful place, a very innocent place where kids could go. And it's one of these small towns where you could leave after breakfast and not show back up until dinner time, and nobody would worry.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so rare now.
It is.
Yeah, that's very, very precious. So what inspired you to write? Now, did you write about your parents?
Oh,
in a way? They just inspire the book.
I describe the book as a kernel of fact wrapped in a lot of fiction. When we went to... Which I think, yeah, you're right. Most fiction really is that. But we would meet other cousins down there, and we were all about the same age. And to tell you the truth, we were holy terrors. We just messed with that town so bad. But it was the innocent kind of stuff. Like we would, toilet paper people's yards, and tie trash cans to car bumpers, and that kind of stuff. And one of the cousins in particular, who was our leader, he was our family's version of Huckleberry Finn. Uh-huh. And an extraordinary human being. And he died at 49. And I knew that if I did not tell these stories, no one other than those cousins and the immediate family would ever know what an extraordinary human being this boy, and this man was. And so that was one motivation to do it, that when John David died, I knew we had to tell the story. But I didn't, it's not autobiographical. It's certainly not a memoir. But I did use stories that these cousins of mine had been involved in as an impetus to create stories for the novel.
Uh-huh. Very cool. And did you feel like when you were writing this and conveying the stories, did you get a sense of this is totally the right thing to do, and I'm so glad I'm here, dragging my sorry ass through this manuscript because it was.
That's more true than you realize, Catherine. I'll tell you. At some point, you just feel like you're sludging through the muck. But yeah, I did, and it was very important to me because many of the cousins that were involved in the story are still alive. And I reached out to them. I told them what I was doing, and actually, when the manuscript was finished, they were the first ones to read it. And I wanted them to read it. I wanted them to give it their blessing. And if they didn't like it, or if there's something they didn't like about it, let me know, and we'd see if we couldn't modify it. But in the summer before it was published, we met in a place called Kennesaw, Alabama, which is in the southwest corner of Alabama on this beautiful river. And it was a great day. All these cousins, we had not been together in decades. And we all met at John David's widow's house. And had this wonderful day of being together and talking about the book. And I had actually used pseudonyms for their names in the book. And over that lunch and during the course of that day, they told me that they wanted their real names used. So I switched it over and turned used their real names.
Wow.
They knew what the intent of the story was. They knew it was fiction, and that I had taken a fair amount of literary license with putting the story together. But I was very grateful that they were all on board with it and gave their blessing.
That is amazing, because most people that would be almost the reverse. And so even if you have, like, if I write, here's my challenge, if I write anything that involves a mother figure, my mother will read it and say, "Oh, I'm the mother." And I'm looking at her like, no.
Well, families are funny things, and they, you can't live with them and you can't live without them. But these people were very special to me. They still are very special to me. And one of the things, and I think that resonated with them too, is that my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and all those to come will never know what it was like to be in that place at that point in time. The simplicity of life, a small southern town. I mean, in the 1968, there was so much social turmoil going on. The women's rights movement, the race movement, so all these social justice movements were going on. Well, life in these small towns kind of flew by under the radar. They just it really was not in that bubbling up area. These were just adolescent kids out for a summer that I call that ended up being their summer of discontent, because they were used to coming into this small town and raising all kind of havoc and then hiding and saying, "No, it wasn't me." But they all come to Crystal Springs this time, and they're all in full-blown puberty. They're trying to deal with this idea of, my life is changing, my body is changing, my mind is changing. And the lead character, Nettie, is fighting this tooth and nail. She's a tomboy. She likes boys to be ball players and friends, but not boyfriends. And she thinks they're annoying twits when they try to be boyfriends. And then she gets to Crystal Springs. She's in full-blown puberty, and she meets this good-looking fella called Mitchell. And it just sends her reeling when all the things that she had known, all the things she thought she wanted out of the summer started to change. Mitchell is the center of the secret in Wiregrass. The story, the mystery of the story kind of centers around Mitchell, and Nettie is just hook, line, and sinker, gone for this fellow. much to her chagrin. This tomboy turned little girl, young woman, and when she really didn't want to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's always a nasty surprise.
Yeah,
Don't think anybody would argue with that. Is Mitchell then your cousin?
no, no. Mitchell is a fictitious character.
Okay. Okay. So your cousins read this, and did they they go through the book and it's like, oh wow, I'd like you to use my real name, and would you make me thinner and smarter? Did you get
Actually,
that?
several of them I talked with as the novel was progressing, because I would remember parts of a story but not remember other things. So I pick up the phone and call one or two of them and say, okay, I don't remember the rest of this. There's one story in the book where the cousins are swamp fishing, and swamp fishing is literally, it's nasty. I mean, you use cane poles and you wade barefooted into the swamp out to where these dead trees are laying down so you can get to the bass that swim around those dead trees. And I can remember it vividly that I thought it was the most disgusting thing I had ever done, and I just felt things creeping and crawling and swimming around and under me. And I thought, but I couldn't find any cousin that could remember doing that. And I thought, I know I did not make this up. This really happened. So we'd had a family reunion last August, and my family went down, and I was actually talking with another cousin that was not in the book. And she told me, do you remember swamp fishing? And I thought, oh, thank God, somebody remembered that event other than me. And we did indeed used to go swamp fishing. So with the leeches and pulling the leeches off and all that nasty stuff. So I had some validation that there was a kernel of truth to this story, this part of the story where I'm talking about fishing in the swamp, wading in and fishing, chest deep in a swamp.
Oh.
Now I wouldn't be able to get past the snakes and the alligators, but back then when you're a young teenager, who cares?
Oh man, I think even as a teenager I would probably care. I'm just going to say that.
Weren't smart enough to figure out that, and just hope that the alligators had not made it that far north.
Yeah. I was raised in California, whole different game. There's hardly any alligators in this part of the country.
That's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
Just saying.
Did you
you
hear about that person that got in trouble recently for throwing an alligator into a fast food outlet?
I saw that. How ridiculous is that?
That made me laugh so much.
See that.
Well, he got done for was it using a weapon, using an animal as a weapon? I didn't even know that was a law.
No, either.
And he coaxed it into his car. How do you coax an alligator into your car?
Usually raw chicken's involved.
Like, you don't... At what point do you pull up along the side? Oh, there's an alligator. Hang on. Open the door. Come on. In you get. Come on.
Good alligator.
Yeah. I've got a question for Pam. Seeing that, you're a nurse... Well, you're a nursing educator. How did people deal... And you said that, writing this book was one of the hardest things you've ever done. Colostomy bags. Sound like the hardest thing to deal with.
Oh no, that's just a piece of cake. That's human functioning. That's nothing. Really. That is such a non-event. I mean, those are activities of daily living. It's just a different form of taking care of normal function. That doesn't bother me. GI bleeds don't bother me. Surgical cases, craniotomies, that doesn't bother me in the least. What was hard was trying to figure out how to do a dialect of a 14-year-old in 1968 in the South. That was hard.
But I've worked in...
And not make it sound completely difficult. I mean, and not... what's the word for dialect? You don't want it to be unreadable, even though you're trying to capture.
Exactly right. I've read books that have tried very hard to so closely mimic that Southern dialect that when you read it, you get to the end of the sentence and you got to go back and read it again because you have no idea what it said.
Right.
And then I've also seen books on the other side that made no attempt to use any Southern dialect, and it took me months to figure out how I wanted to do it. I tried different ways, and then finally I just decided to use the KISS philosophy, which is basically keep it simple. And what I ended up doing was literally dropping the G from the action verbs in the dialogue of the cousins. And it did it. It made it Southern enough that people knew it was the South, but it wasn't so overpowering that it knocked the reader off the story and made it more about the dialect than it was about the story. But it wasn't easy to figure that out. Never having done it before, it was, it was like the smallest decision just kind of put me in a tailspin for a few weeks until I could figure it out.
And that is one of the challenges. That's always been the challenge with dialect. Is to make it as authentic as you can without completely creating something that was going to be unreadable in a matter of months, if not days, because our dialects change. And historically there's been a number of writers who have created very accurately. I've created these great these books with lots of great dialect. And they're trying to capture whatever the regional accent is, and we can't read them now, and so they're lost. And that's I'm sad about that on behalf of language and on behalf of the writers themselves. But you have to get that middle ground, like a Mark Twain or Charles Dickens, where they throw in a little bit. You get your you have your, as you pointed out, you drop something consistently to give that sense, but you can't go all the way because people can't read it, and that completely defeats your purpose.
Like the Australian
One of my
accent.
mentors,
like the Australians, yes.
told me early on that I needed to keep the writing in a place where the reader felt like they could come in and sit right next to the characters and be a participant in the language, participant in the conversation. Of course, a silent participant. But if you're thinking about it like that your dialogue has to be so conversational that the reader thinks they're part of it, then you have to keep it simple. If you get too complex, then even if they're sitting right next to you, they're not going to understand it. So that KISS philosophy has served me well.
Very cool. Very cool. Damien, you had something to say. I didn't want to dump on you.
No, that's fine.
No, it's all right. What was I going to say? Yes, I noticed you were talking about before, like the real names and that sort of thing. Have you seen some of the reviews that you've got on Amazon? There's some very paranoid people out there now.
Yeah. You know what? I've gotten some wonderful reviews. I think everybody gets one or two bad ones out there, but
Sure.
I've been very blessed. The reviews have been sensational. Much better than I figured a debut novelist deserved, but I'm very grateful for them.
Well, I really think you should respond to one of them, because someone has given you a 1-star review on the basis of it's a long paragraph. There's a point that says, I was taken aback by the use of real names of some of the characters in the book. I found myself turning the pages, not because the novel was so compelling, but because I feared that I might show up on a page. Can you respond to that and say, it's okay, Kevin, I took your name out?
There are people just unhappy people everywhere, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're going to be unhappy. They're going to do what they can do, and God bless them, and I hope they find somewhere along the line to be happy. Not everybody's going to like what I write. I'm just grateful that a lot of people do. And the same thing, I read books that I don't like. Now, I don't give people nasty reviews, but I'm basically a happy person and say, okay, I just didn't happen to like that one, move on.
Right.
But you just can let it go. You can't worry about it. I'm an educator, so we're used to evaluation. And the general rule of thumb is you throw out the best one, you throw out the worst one, and you take what's in the middle. The most valuable feedback is going to come from those middle people anyway.
Oh, it's a good philosophy. I like that.
But
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I do that when I look at reviews. If there's about 5. Here's a few 5 stars. Here's a bunch of 4 stars and like one star written by Damien, I'm sure. I throw out the top and I throw out the bottom and then say, okay, here's what I'm going to listen to.
Mm-hmm. There's always going to be people who love you. There's always going to be people who hate you, and there's going to be people in the middle. And it's just life, just life.
But isn't there? I just find it strange that someone is worried that they might appear in there with their real name. And I'm thinking, what did you get up to?
Hypothesized that they're a cousin that didn't make it into the book. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea who it is. So anyway.
Because you would know. I mean, that sounds so silly. It's like I might be in the book, and you're thinking as the author, no, pretty sure if I don't know who you are, you didn't end up in the book.
I mean,
It seems pretty obvious to me.
but is that just a thing of that they're pissed off because they weren't in there? I mean, I've paid someone $5 to kill me in a book.
Yes.
I have no idea. And to tell you the truth, I don't spend any energy worrying about it. It's just, it's interesting as in academia, you get the evaluations all the time, and you get good ones and you get not so good ones.
Yeah.
In the novel writing world, it has amazed me how sensitive, and then maybe I'm just being not smart about this, but it has amazed me how sensitive novel writers are to the least little bit of negative feedback. And it's like everybody has to love me, everybody has to love my book. No, that's not life. And I know that I'm very picky about the literature that I read and what I like to read. And I imagine other people are. It's kind of like tea. You like some teas, you don't like others. That I'm just not foolish enough to believe that everybody's going to love the book. And there are some people, the only outlet they have to vent any type of feeling at all is on the internet. And some authors just really get the heck beat out of them by these people. I'm grateful that, I guess it's conditioning, all these years of being evaluated by students and readers of nursing text. You just you just take it for what it is. You take the good, you take the bad. Nobody loves you as much as the best review in the world, and nobody hates you as much as the worst. So take what's in the middle, and hopefully make your next book better.
That's why we like the really sensitive guests to come on, because they end up walking away with a slapped ass, really. There's no need for it. Like, toughen up, princess. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you certainly have a good approach to this. You're right, and we have authors, and I have run into countless authors who do not have that kind of balance when it comes to their work, because it's their baby. That's what's interesting, that this is your first novel. Most people are very sensitive about the first novel. It's like your first child, and you don't want anybody to tell you that he's super funny looking, even though 3 years later you look at a photo and say, whoa, that was one funny looking baby.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing about
sad.
it, all they have to do is go back and look at the greats, the great authors, especially go back and look at some of the great Southern authors. I mean, those folks got handed their lunch. They had critics just tearing them up one side and down the other. And either your work is valuable and accomplishes what you intended it to accomplish, which is basically to be entertaining for people who like Southern literature, in my case, who like Southern literature, or it doesn't hit the mark, and it's not going to hit everybody's mark. Some people hate Southern literature. Some people, the minute you put that dialogue in there, they're going to close the book. They don't like it. It's just not meant to make everybody happy, and I don't know any book ever published that has made everybody happy.
Yeah, and that's fine. And it sounds like what you've done is created something that's personal that then translates into being universal. And that, I think that's the beauty. Oh my God, Southern writers are amazing. I just, they're interesting. There's something about the South, and I speak this as being a West Coast writer. There's just something about the South that I don't know what you guys have down there to drink. I don't know if it's the alligators.
Actually, have you ever heard of Flannery O'Connor?
Oh yes, of course.
Flannery
Yes.
O'Connor, this great Southern writer, and she said once that her stories were about finding grace in places held by the devil. And I think that nails it. That's, this Southern literature usually is really good about finding the best and the worst of the South and putting it out there. These battles between good and evil, these good and bad, and they're usually wrapped around these family sagas, and which is life. I mean, it's life, and especially life down south. The one thing that I did differently in the Wiregrass was the family saga involved around 5 teenagers. Just barely teenagers in puberty, and which is still a family saga of sorts, and the importance of family certainly comes through in the story. The importance of neighborhood and small town, and the people who lined up in support of these kids, and the people who lined up against these kids, and the darkness and the evil that was lurking in the shadows. This good. I think one of the best analogies is that the Wiregrass is a place where angels and demons dance. And that's exactly what the story is about. It's about this ongoing dance between good and evil, and the protagonist are these kids.
Cool. Very cool. So we're going to do a couple of our set pieces. Where can we find you, and where can we find this interesting book?
It's like I said, it's being distributed by Ingram, so you should be able to get it anywhere. All the major bookstores have it. All the independent bookstores either have it or can get it. You can certainly get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, all those kinds of places. There's a website, www.thewiregrass.com. And you can get to the same website by going to www.pamwebber.com. Either one will get you to the website. The trailer for the book is on the website, as well as some of the latest reviews and the news coming out of what's going on. I'm very excited. The Wiregrass has been selected to be one of the books featured at the Virginia Festival of the Book, which is going to be in Charlottesville in March. So we're really excited. Very excited about that.
So who came up with the Q&A on your website?
I'm working with a publicist, Stephanie Barco, which I'm sure you guys know.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephanie and I work those questions out together. She's a very good publicist. So, when she said, come up with some Q&As, I would come up with a list, send them to her. She would edit and say, use this one, don't use that one, and send it back. So it was a process of give and take for a week or two until we got the questions isolated.
Oh, well, there you go. I don't see anything about coaxing an alligator into your car. I'll just...
Nope, didn't do that.
Oh, it's a shame. Anyway.
Such a good story, though.
I know. Should be a movie.
So, Pam, you're welcome to hang out while we do our prompts and our word of the week, or if you need to go because it is in the evening where you are, you're welcome to go start your weekend.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun.
That's all right.
Well, good. I'm glad it ended up that way. You never know when you start with us.
Isn't that the truth? Well, that's with anybody. And Damien, I hope your back gets better soon.
Yeah, so do I. I had before, and I am so lucky I had this house wired up to be separate on either end. My wife's cooking breakfast and she tripped a circuit in the house. And I'm like, how come it's gone really dark in here? Nearly lost the whole show. That's all right. You guys are chatting away and I'm manly out there flicking things on and off.
It's going to be one of those weekends, isn't it?
I should drink at 8:30 in the morning.
Yes, you should, and then take some ibuprofen and some Advil and drink. That works for me.
Yeah, I'm not a rock star.
Going to Australia is on my bucket list, so if we ever get there, I'll look you up.
Well, see, I was going to say, if you grew up sort of around, alligators and nasty things. We've got all that, snakes, whatever.
Yep, they do.
You keep the snakes. I'll take my chances with the alligator.
I mean, you go to Hawaii, they give you a wreath of flowers. I'm surprised we don't drape a snake around people's necks. Welcome to Australia.
That would take care of any tourist issues, wouldn't it?
It certainly would. We'd never be invaded.
If my child had walked into Sydney Airport and someone had draped a snake around his neck, he would have never left. It would have been, here are my people. They're already his people. But seriously, that would have clinched the deal for the kid.
Well, I got to say, come recently, we've got the kangaroo on our coat of arms. We've just passed a thing. We need to cull them. They're going to kill like 1,000 of them somewhere. As you do. Could you imagine saying that to an American? Look, we're going to cull the bald eagle.
Right. No, that is no.
No.
But the kangaroo is sort of, it would be like if we, if Benjamin Franklin had his way and the turkey was the national bird, then we would have had a real problem with Thanksgiving, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
You're
really.
in the same kind of situation.
Yeah, but we're not cooking up a kangaroo around Christmas going, let's give thanks for this pest. God, Bloody kangaroo.
Well, thanks so much, guys. I look forward to talking with you all again one day.
Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
we will call. We'll be in contact. Thanks for
Sounds
being
good.
on.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
All right.
Should we do a prompt?
Let's do a prompt. So I don't know if you remembered. No, I don't know if you. Do you guys do Valentine's Day in Australia?
Sharon and I may have had a discussion about that last night and said, what are we doing for... What are we doing?
Another terrible, terrible English. I think Valentine's Day is English, actually. I don't even think we can take credit for it.
Yeah, but you will.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that it starts with a lovely, English tradition that then gets massively commercialized by the time it gets to our country.
Yeah, I don't know. I just said, well, what are we doing? And she says, I think this year we don't have to do anything. I'm like, good. Because, I think at some point you've been together long enough that it's just another day. You don't need to commercialize it too much. It's not like, if we're getting divorced, maybe, I don't know. But...
Well, I think that you are smart to have the conversation because sometimes, we have a conversation like that. It's like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. And are you thinking what I'm thinking? Or am I just assuming that you're thinking what I'm thinking? And then you get in trouble.
Yes, because then you end up with a gift and like, Happy Valentine's Day. And like, I didn't think we were doing anything this year.
Right, because we didn't say anything because we thought we could read each other's minds. I'm getting gravel.
What? Again?
I'm getting gravel. I'm getting 8 yards of gravel delivered today for Valentine's Day. We're taking a photo of the gravel with a big heart in front of it, and I'm posting it on Facebook. That's my Valentine's gift.
God, I think we might go out to dinner, but yes, there will be no... Oh, that was the other thing, because it's on a Sunday, and I often can be a bit of an idiot. I refuse to pay florist fees on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, because they're astronomical, yes.
Right, it's a rort. So you can order, say, I don't know, a dozen flowers on a Thursday, and there'll be a certain price. But if Valentine's Day is on a Friday, double the price.
Right.
So I would often send them to Sharon's work the day before or the day after, just because I'm a tight ass. And she said to me this year, she goes, it's on a Sunday, which means you can't send me flowers at work. And I said, yeah, but there's Monday. And she says, don't. Just don't. I don't want to have... You will look like the idiot. I said, I know, that's the whole point.
No, because then she has to explain why she's still with you to
Correct.
her co-workers.
I'm not seeing a problem with this whatsoever.
That's why I'm taking a photo of the gravel.
So, no, I won't do that. And, yeah, we'll just go to tea. But, I don't know. I just don't... maybe it's an age thing, too. I've never been one of those to be sort of romantically sappy. So, yeah.
It's age, it's relationship, it's, there's all sorts of things where, when we were really young, you're in high school, you're in college, it matters because you're not sure about anything. And, if you're pretty sure about a relationship, then you can say, I'm going to send you flowers the next day, or better, bring flowers for no reason at all. That's much more effective than having to, quote unquote, on a specific date.
Yeah, that's right.
At least that's what my husband says. There you go.
Oh. Well, let's do this prompt.
So the prompt is, what is or could be the worst Valentine greeting ever? If you haven't received one, what would one sound like or look like? How big would a bad Valentine card have to be? And how small would the most excellent Valentine be? So just think about Valentine's Day in a different way. What would be the worst thing you could possibly say on a Valentine's card besides, I guess, break up with you?
Actually, I think this happened once, where when you order flowers online, and there's that little box at the bottom that says special instructions. I think it was last year I sent flowers. They put the wrong information into the actual card.
Oh no!
And so it had my name in there. So I sent it to Sharon, and it had to Damien, please go to reception and ask for Sharon in the actual card.
the most cryptic Valentine note ever.
I remember her ringing me, laughing, going, "You sending your own flowers to me, are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course."
That's good.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you won on that one. That's pretty darn good.
So that was the Happy Valentine's Day, self.
Self, me. That's almost as good. My son, because he loves to mess with Amazon, he orders his cat litter through Amazon Prime so that they have to ship it for free because that just entertains him.
Oh.
So there's an option on Amazon, as you know, where you can write, is this a gift? And then you can write a little gift note. So he writes notes to the cat
What?
as the gift card for the cat litter to come in. And I said, what? And they're very clever. And I said, what prompted this? And he says, because Amazon has to keep it all in their database. And that amuses me.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, cat love letters, got it.
He's got to get. Yeah, but the thing is, they're sitting there going, "Wow, this guy's a weirdo. He's probably
Yes.
probably
I
fat,
think
living
that's
with
what
his
he's
mother."
shooting for.
You know.
Yeah, I think he's going for weird. They're very clever. So, because I was reading him, he posts them on the refrigerator, and I'm thinking, who is he sending notes to about cat litter?
Why can't you just
And I found out, oh, you're doing that on purpose. Thank God.
Why can't you just go to the general store and buy the $3 bag?
Because it's funnier to have it delivered through Amazon. That's why.
Gosh. So have you ever had a really bad Valentine? This is going to lump Andrew in it, I know. But have you ever had something that's just terrible where you've had to laugh at it?
No, I have to. That's why it's so interesting because I don't have anything to draw from. I mean, I've gotten nice ones, or people have forgotten old boyfriends. Not the current guy I'm with. He's pretty good about that. And all I needed for Valentine's is a card. It's like, hey, it's Valentine's Day. Here's your card. Good to go. We do not go out on Valentine's Day because that's like amateur night. It's the restaurants are packed with people who don't know what to do. I was like, we're out. We'll go home, have a bottle of wine. We're fine.
Yeah, I know, but
So
they're
no, I
also...
don't have any good stories. I'm so sorry. Nothing.
But they're the best. You go...
I know.
It's
The crappy stories are the ones we remember, and I've got nothing.
Yeah, but like with the restaurants and places to eat, they're the hardest to get into on Valentine's Day. But if you can get in, they're
it's their busiest
amazing.
day. It's Valentine's Day and Mother's Day are the two busiest restaurant days.
I love it because you can sit down. It's like, yeah, well, Sharon and I know each other for 12 years, so not really. How's the boy? How was school? That sort of stuff.
Right.
But I like you watch them and you see these people coming in. There's the over dolled up woman, guys
Right.
looking a bit nervous, and they're trying to be romantic. It's like, my God, this is awkward to watch.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. There's a lot of pressure to be quote romantic, and how do you just cough that up?
Yeah, well, that's right. Without looking
Yeah.
sleazy and weird. Shall we start with a lot of oysters? Oh,
Yes, that's right. That's right.
please.
And believe me, my husband watching me slurp down oysters with great relish is not romantic.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing. Anyway. So, yes.
So that's the prompt. Do you want to try the word of the day?
I do. Word of the week. I did see this earlier when you sent it through, and I was like, oh, God, I can't even pronounce this. Expurfacient?
That sounds good.
Expurfacient. There you go.
The patient, yeah,
It's right. This is very fitting for Valentine's Day.
I thought so.
So the meaning, the adjective is awakening or arousing. A drug or other agent that awakens or arouses. Oh, right.
Yeah,
So
I thought that would be a good Valentine's word.
the street term for expurfation is Bill Cosby.
Oh God.
Anyway, have a coffee.
On that note,
On that note, pudding pop. Let's do a tortured sentence.
let's do the tortured sentence.
Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences. That's that was me yesterday.
Oh, I bet.
Especially when I was at another job and the phone rang and they said, you've got to get out to this very large sign at the airport, it's not working. I'm going, really, today of all days? So I was sounding like that as I was crawling up a ladder with one arm. Just go,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So our torture sentence is from the World According to Student Bloopers. And the sentence is, many of the Indian heroes were killed along with their cabooses, which proved very, very fatal to them.
You know, how do you kill a caboose? We dismantled it over time.
I think they were thinking papoose, which is the baby. And when you're killed, it is indeed fatal.
Well, one would hope so.
That's another book. It's a different kind of book. Now we're talking Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, right?
Yeah, exactly. What's with the zombies thing?
We can do a whole. We've done a show on how current horror films reflect the anxieties of the time in which they're made.
Yeah,
And zombies very much are. It's the you walk around mindless, getting eaten alive by mindlessness. So we could make a lot of parallels with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the whole werewolf thing seems to have died down, doesn't it? Which is good, finally.
Vampires have kind of died down a little bit. Vampires are great sexual metaphors. That's why they blossom, so to speak, so completely in the Victorian times, and then they just go up and down depending on where we are as a culture. And the zombie thing is so interesting. It's about having your brain eaten. It's about I think it's about the internet. It's about losing control and having a group that you can't talk to take over. You can't, because you don't negotiate with a zombie. You either kill it or you don't kill it. And so I think that anybody who's been on a customer service line would probably agree that zombies are taking over.
Yeah, because I fired up Netflix. There's others out there, other things. We signed up to another one as well. And I just noticed there was Walking Dead, then there was iZombie, and then is it Pride and Prejudice Zombie or something?
Yeah, it's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Yes.
And that's where I went, wow, are we that retarded?
The movie got good reviews. My son gave me that book way back for Christmas just because he knew it would annoy the hell out of me.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're going to be like The Lord of the Rings and zombies.
Yeah, that's pretty much where we're going with the franchise. And I'm just hoping that it'll maybe burn itself out. Although, how do you kill zombies? Do you have to cut their heads off? I don't even remember what to do during the zombie apocalypse, which isn't good. I should know these things.
Yeah, I don't know, but it always seems that a shotgun works, and I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe blow them apart. All right, if anybody out there knows how to handle zombies during the apocalypse, please let us know, because apparently we need better skills.
Oh, I'd love to chat to one of those doomsday preppers, Like those training camps.
Yeah, that would be interesting, but they're so paranoid they wouldn't talk to us, probably.
I can't go on the show because the government's listening. Well,
right. Well, that would be another listener. I'm all over that.
If the government's listening to this, I'm in a lot of trouble. It's all good. All right, so that'll probably do it for this week.
Yep.
Who have we got on next week?
Summer Neckerhoff, and she is an author.
I'd hope so.
And that's how we roll, authors and books. And I hope that you take it easy and take drugs and are better when we talk next week.
Oh, well, I hope so. I've got a lot to do.
Yes.
So, no, that's all good. It'll get there eventually. Just have to keep moving around. All right, well, yes. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.